what's that one book that you would recommend for everyone, me and all the people who are going to watch this? What is that one book that you recommend everyone should read?
No, before I answer that question, Maridas, something else struck me from what you said. Okay. And I've been kind of observing a pattern here. So one of the things that all these reels and shorts and podcasts have done is, I don't remember the source, but recently I came across some kind of a survey which says that the percentage of people who are acquiring information and wisdom and knowledge through books is falling down like this.
Hmm.
Whereas they're picking it up through podcasts and shorts and
Right.
reels, picking up like that. Okay. I've also had friends in college who said for their life they couldn't read a book.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's also to do with our learning style.
Very true. Very true.
So, if somebody has more of an auditory learning style and they want to pick up books, I would say go pick a, audiobook from Audible,
Hmm.
whatever it is, but do read them. That's one. Now, the question that you asked me about recommending a book, that one book that everybody should read, it's a little tricky for me, Maridas, because there are a couple of books that have had a deep influence on me, and I'm trying to figure out which one to lead.
Something that people could start with.
Well, I have a book. I have a couple of books, but and even in that, the book that I would recommend you start with is a little risky, but because not everybody, may be open to it. But it's a book. Whoever has read that book and has tried to put in the effort to understand that content and applied it has had their life become better. I can certainly vouch for myself. And that book is, My Experiments with Truth by Mohandas
Yes. Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi, right? That was an amazing book. Gave me a lot of courage to be truthful, to hold a mirror to my own face and to hold myself accountable and become fearless eventually. That was the first book that had a profound influence on, when you asked this question earlier, that what made Sree who he is today. That was one book. But there are a couple of other books also. If I have your permission, I'd like to quickly recommend. Another book that was absolutely unbelievable, and not many people would know about it because it's not in the day-to-day course of things. But I got to know of it because of my work around the area of conflict resolution and restorative justice and all that. That's where I came across this book. It was written by the late Nobel laureate and Archbishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa. He wrote this book called No Future Without Forgiveness.
Wow.
And this was in the context of the reconciliation process the South African government undertook once Nelson Mandela became the president. And what was the difficulty in that? What was the hard work they had to put in through that? And what is the cost they saved as a result of it? What is the benefit they got out of it? All the legal, moral dilemmas and ethics are all around this. It's a wonderful, phenomenal book. I was lucky to find a person by the name Professor Glenn Page, who was the founder of the Center for Global Nonviolence in Hawaii, who, by the way, was a former soldier in the Korean War. And he then became a pacifist, and he became a professor, and he recommended this book. And guess what? I happened to meet him only because I had read the book My Experiments with Truth.
Wow.
Because as a result of reading that book, I went and visited the Gandhi Smriti and Darshan Samiti in Delhi. I used to go there for programs regularly. That's where I met Professor Page. I wrote to him, I spoke to him, and I said, this is what I want to do in my LLM and all that stuff, conflict resolution, peace and forgiveness and all. And all that was coming from Vipassana.
Hmm.
Forgiveness process I had undergone myself. So then he sent me a long email, and it's one of my most treasured possessions when it comes to communication, that mail from Professor Page. And there he recommended this book. A
Wow.
couple of years later, when I'm the time of doing my LLM dissertation, I'm not able to find this book here. And I mail him and I say, sir, I can't find this book here. And this is before Amazon and all. Okay. Uh, he buys that book for me from Hawaii and couriers it to me and refuses to take a penny in charge.
Wow.
So this was a second book called No Future Without Forgiveness. And I was fortunate to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Delhi in 2007. One of the highlights of my life, I would say. Two other quick books I would recommend along with what we've discussed so far. One is called The Learning Factory
Learning factory. Okay.
by Mr. Arun Maira, who was formerly with the Tata Group and then with Boston Consulting Group and all that. A must-read book for anybody who's in the training and facilitation industry or around employee engagement. Then a book called Humanocracy.
Human oppression.
Humanocracy.
Okay.
by Gary Hamel and Michele Zanini.
Okay.
Michele Zanini. So it's about how do you redesign organizations and make them as great as the people inside them. So there are some amazing 7 principles in there, and they're really helpful. And the last, of course, we already spoke. It's not about you. That book called "It's Not About You," but now it's retitled as "The Go Giver Leader."
Go give a leader. Go give a. Okay.
And then of course there are a lot of other books like A Man's Search for Meaning and Stephen Covey's books, all of them. But I didn't mention them because I think people like you and me, we would have already heard of those books.
Just to add to what you have said, a lot of the books that you recommended, you spoke about. Some of them I've never heard. Some of them, yes, I have heard. But just to bring this to your notice and all those people who might be watching, knowing about a book versus reading it versus taking that message, putting it into practice, huge difference. So I know, from your meditation from your early childhood days, uh, you could find your calling. You knew there's a purpose to what you're doing, and all these books, all the people you met along that journey has helped you to just build yourself, your purpose into a stronger foundation, and say, hey, you know what? On this foundation, I'm going to build a legacy. Uh, and yeah, I would recommend all this book to a lot of people. Maybe after the podcast, to send me the links also. I can just put it across. But yeah, this is amazing. One few of the books I will pick up myself, remembering that it's not about you. Maybe that's a good one. Perfect. Small question. Now we're talking about purpose and the books that helped us bring about all this impact. I know that you are doing you're into training, facilitation, and you also have your own consulting services. So how are you helping a lot of people like me, maybe trainers, coaches, or people who are like just new to the workforce? How is your business making an impact on their life? Something that they need to know.
Sure. Great question. In fact, I've thought about it myself for some time. And here is what I found. Here is what I found. In a lot of corporate parlance, you'll find the following conversation going on saying that, hey, we want to be the best in the world. We want to be best. We want to be number one, and so on and so forth. So much of market cap, all that stuff. You know that spiel.
Yes, yes, very true.
But some of my mentors, like Vineet Taneja sir or Professor Raj Sisodia, who's a co-author of a book on conscious capitalism, so on and so forth. As I stayed in touch with them, as I interacted with them, as I learned from them, I came across a very interesting narrative. Something that shifts. To use a term in NLP called reframe. Uh,
Yes.
this reframed the way I saw things or I understood things. So these two people had a question which was like, are we trying to be just best in the world, or can we also look at trying to be best for the world?
Wow. That's deep. I'll write it down just be the best in the world. Okay, that's what the corporate agenda is for now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Versus can we be the best for the world? Now,
yeah.
I funnel it down. As I funnel it down to my work, I work with individuals, I work with organizations, I work with teams. So and I come from a hardcore strengths psychology background, Gallup's, whole strength psychology background. Hey, that reminds me, I need to tell you about one more book.
Yes.
It's from the person who synthesized the Clifton Strengths Assessment test by Donald Clifton and his grandson Tom Rath. There's a book called How Full Is Your Bucket?
How full is your bucket?
It's an amazing, beautiful concept, must read in my opinion. And there is a children's version also of this book. And that's something, again, if not this, then what I would love to engage children with. How full is your bucket? Kind of an idea. So coming from a strength psychology background, I've always been curious to find out what's the best in a person. How does a person look like when they're at their best? What all can a person do when they're at their best?
Yeah.
What all can we do to activate the best in a person?
So this is minus all the limiting belief. that maybe they just
Yeah, all
for
that.
some reason just adapted. People might have said something while they were a kid or their colleagues or whatever, but they have accepted that this is what the world says, this is who I am. So minus that, if I can
Minus
actually
that.
focus on my strength.
Absolutely. And and to that, I need to add some beautiful words there for you, Maria. One of my friend wrote this on Facebook a couple of years ago. I don't remember his name, but he wrote something very profound. He said, "We are all a sum total of our conditionings."
Wow, very true.
So that's what I remembered when you said minus all that.
Yes,
So
yes.
minus all the conditionings, all the shackles and the anchors and the all that stuff. And when we help a person look at what's already their natural strength and how do they convert that out into something useful, my purpose is to look at what is it that we can do to bring out the best in a person for them to become the best in the world, to become best for the world.
Very beautiful. Beautiful. Now, I understand that in terms of how you're helping people, one is strength, psychology, coaching. And I think because you also are an NLP practitioner, what I found is if you are a coach, it's obviously amazing that you have to learn NLP because some of the things that you're doing unconsciously while you are doing your coaching sessions is borrowed from NLP. And you are also a NLP practitioner. How has that helped you to see world in a very different way? Just before you answer that, I read something very beautiful that the world is right here. Everything right here in your mind. All your goals, all your demons, your status, your anxiety, everything right here. So keeping that really at peace is a challenge. But there's obviously NLP and coaching and the business that you're into, the work that you're doing. How is that helping some of those people? And what is something that you recommend if people want to learn about this?
Learn about what specifically.
Learn about coaching, learn about NLP, or possibly if they want to reach out to you for some sort of help.
Yeah, I mean, they can always reach out to me through my LinkedIn profile, etc. Um, More than happy. But also, I promise them this that I'll also be happy to introduce them to people who are far ahead of me on different aspects and competencies of NLP, etc., and get benefited from them as well. There are some amazingly good and great teachers when it comes to NLP with whom I still learn from, engage with them. And each time I talk to them, I just come away walking like this. Wow, how come I didn't see that? How come there's so much more? And they're so good at with those aspects of NLP. NLP is like a wide ocean, and
Right.
each one of us will, naturally resonate or gravitate towards some of those aspects or nuggets of NLP than others, because again, it comes from our natural strengths and what we resonate more with. There are others who are an expert at other aspects that you not may not be naturally very good at or great at. So
Right.
what I've done is I've created my board of advisors and well-wishers. So in companies, you have the board of directors. I have my board of advisors and well-wishers to whom I turn, and there are well-wishers, guides on n number of topics, and some of them also are like NLP and coaching related. And I promise whoever gets in touch with me, wherever I feel that they need to get in touch with somebody better than me, or where they've hit a roadblock with me because I don't know that, I'll put them in touch with the right set of people.
Coaching has been transformative for me as well. In fact, one of the reasons and I've told you this, is why I think of myself as a coachee versus a coach. Although by profession, yes, I am doing coaching, but I'm learning a lot. And I know coaching, NLP, all this aspect, if you apply certain principles to yourself, it changes you as a person. So just one question. What is the one radical shift that you have seen in yourself through doing what you're doing? Maybe through coaching, NLP, and all the facilitation. What's one thing that you're like, hey, you know what? This is what I need to practice before preaching.
Uh, okay. I think I had a certain answer forming up in my mind as you were asking me that question earlier. Then towards the end, it was something else. So let me start with some
Yes.
part first. For me, you see, like I said, I came into training accidentally. I always loved teaching. So I was a teacher first. I've also taught in universities. I learned the difference between telling, teaching, training, facilitating, and coaching. Each has its own place, and also counseling in between. Each has its place, each has its significance and importance. But I think one thing that I was lucky to have learned in my very first training program, the training program in Gwalior Central Jail in November 2000, and which truly touched me and which I'm still trying to master, is the importance of listening first before opening your mouth. That's the most powerful, profound lesson I've learned. And I am saying this because in that session it was not easy. I mean, we had two groups of people who were, trying to, get to each other. But somewhere, and that's a long story. So, long story short here, somewhere what happened is, without realizing, when both the parties realized that they were for the first time ever heard by the other person and understood by the other person, is where their animosity, their suspicion, misgivings about each other kind of dropped. And at the end of those 2 days, they kind of decided to come together and co-create certain things. And that had a profound impact on me as a 24 and a half year old person back then, with my very first training program. And that's something I'm still trying to, practice. It doesn't come easy, because we all have our filters, our biases, our subjectivity, our, conditioning experiences. So to be alert and have that self-awareness part of it, that mindfulness part, again, is the second point I'll put in there, which is very significant. And the last thing I would say, what I've learned through all this, Mariadas, is this. When I came into corporate training 17 years ago, coincidentally, at around the same time, I came across a very interesting line, which is attributed to Galileo, where he said that you cannot teach a man anything new. You can only help him find it within himself.
Right.
In a more gender neutral term, we'll say that you cannot teach a person anything new, you can only help them find it within themselves. And what happened is, that's where the shift for me happened from teaching and training into facilitation, by bringing out the answer that's already within people, by asking them the right set of questions. And from there, I discovered that when I ask questions first in my sessions, keep my mouth shut and be willing to listen, eventually what happens is people find their own answers, they find their own solutions, and therefore the retention and the ownership of the answers are higher. But I'm able to tap into collective intelligence and collective wisdom. And I stand to gain more, I stand to learn more than what I went into the session with.
Amazing, amazing. I think I have experienced that first time. Again, made my own share of mistakes. When I first got into coaching, on paper I was a coach. For me, it was just telling people, because now I'm a coach, I'm designation wise higher. I'm telling people, hey, you know what? This is what you're supposed to do. This is how you're supposed to take care of your team. X, Y, Z. Uh, Till someone told me, hey, what you're doing is absolutely wrong. You are a coach, and you're supposed to act as a coach, which means you're just supposed to sit there, ask good questions, and listen, which was, to be honest, the most difficult thing. I would say, still, as you rightly said, still figuring it out. How do I actually listen without having to stress about what I need to say? Just listen, be there. Uh, Amazing. Okay. What we'll do is just two things before we move. I've got some cards here. This is a random question. Okay, I'm not selecting anything. All I would want you to do is just ask me to stop whenever you are comfortable. Whatever question comes in, uh, just for the audience, if you're comfortable, would like you to share about one of those questions. Okay, so just starting whenever you want to stop.
Stop.
Okay, it's right here, and it says, "Oh, what are you scared of the most?"
What am I scared of the most? At this point of time in my life, the stage where I'm in right now, the fear is about, losing parents, and also scared about, what if I survive my wife? What if she leaves me earlier?
Very true, very true, very true, very true. And I think that is something that happens to me as well. In fact, I have already spoken to you. So I had a deep influence on my life from a mentor, coach, friend, Pradeep Varpe. And I've spoken to you about,
And
this
and
is
you named
entire.
a practice after him called
Yes,
walk.
yes, walked. In fact, that is one of the questions that I had. This is the last question that I had. Eventually, I realized that one thing which is ultimately sure, it's a given, is death. If you are alive
You wrote
now,
about that on LinkedIn, I remember.
yes,
Yeah.
that is for sure. We are about. Uh, so I remember asking one of my a very good friend to think about what he really wants to accomplish in his life, how to lead a purposeful, meaningful life. And I found it really difficult because for him, he's like, dude, why are you asking me about death? You're acting like an LIC agent now. I found it funny at the same time, very irritating because I was trying to ask him if he had to write a will, right? Like actually just put down thing, this is the end of your life, and just say, okay, this is what I would like to leave for my parents, this is what I would want my family to have. Obviously, there's a certain thing about material possession, but there may be a lot of values, lessons, what sort of impact you want to have on the world. So I asked him to write those down. Very difficult for him because thinking about death is not pleasant. And he said, dude, I don't really want to talk about this, don't want to think about this because I know I have a lot of time. And I was like, how are you so sure?
Yeah, yeah.
How are you so sure? I mean, okay, you're thinking about what you want to have 50 years from now, retire, 20 years from now, buy a bungalow, getting a house loan for about 20 years. How are you so sure? And eventually, everyone would leave Earth, leave this world. So, what sort of legacy does Sree Kumar wants to leave? If you had to possibly write your will, what is that one thing that you want to do for the society, do for your family, anything that comes to your mind?
Interestingly, I've thought about this since my childhood, and I'll tell you why I thought about it. But before I come to that part of it, in terms of the body part, um, something I've told my family already is that if I die before them, then, donate all the organs that can be donated, and whatever is left of the body, just give it off for research.
Wow.
And so that's one part. Coming to the other one as to why I've been thinking about this since my childhood. Maria, there are 10 songs that have deeply influenced my thinking process from my childhood.
Okay.
And these 10 songs also define who I am as a person or what my values are. And I want to borrow the lines from one of those songs, to explain a certain thing as a preface before I go to the answer the real question.
Yes, yes, please.
So one of the poets who's had a deep, profound influence on my thinking in my life has been the late Mr. Sahir Ludhianvi,
Okay.
right? And he wrote two amazing songs in the movie called Kabhi Kabhi. And one is a more popular known song. The other one is not as popularly known. So let me start with the not popularly known, which is literally like a mirror image of the first one. So
Okay.
it's like, मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ हर एक पल मेरी कहानी है, right?
Wow.
So whereas the previous one is मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ करके it's is again how it starts. And in there was a stanza, I think, which had a profound impact on me, which says, कल और आएंगे मुझसे बेहतर कहने वाले तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले मसरूफ जमाना क्यों बर्बाद करे वक्त अपना मेरे लिए करके.
Wow. I mean, wow. So
And
deep.
this had a profound impact on my life much earlier. I don't know why and how, but it had. So when it comes to leaving a legacy, there are two parts of thoughts that go on in my mind. One, I've been deeply influenced by nature, and I love to spend a lot of time in nature, in forests, and meditation by the mountains and rivers, etc., and just sit there quietly and become one with the nature's wavelength and vibe, and that's where my mind gets decluttered and I get a lot of clarity. Um, and in one such instance, what happened is I was traveling by train, and I had just crossed Kalyan, and we were on the way to Nasik train, and the mountains and the trees and all were kind of passing us by, and it all of a sudden struck me that for whatever grandiose impressions we human beings have about us, nature doesn't give a damn. Right? The
Very true.
trees which are there. They don't even know or realize that we humans exist till we finish them. The mountains are there; they're existing. They predated us, they might succeed us as well. Nature doesn't give a damn to our grandiose impressions of what are we trying to do in the world, for the best of the world, or whatever it is. So there is a part of me which says that, once I die, once I pass off, few years down the line, everything will be forgotten. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. At the same time, I also know, and this is a realization I had when I look at the lives of people like Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Nelson Mandela, George Washington Carver, all my role models. When I look at their lives, and when I remember finished watching that movie Dangal. My wife is also a trainer, and both of us, have interesting conversations with our children. So at the end of the movie, my wife was asking our children, "So what's your takeaway? What did you learn from this?" I happen to venture in and add that my takeaway is when I look at Mr. Mahavir Singh Phogat's role or the character, or for that matter, any of the role models I've spoken before, whether you like it or not, you are casting an impression.
Very true.
It can be positive, it can be negative, right? And therefore, you have a responsibility to be a shining role model for others. You have a responsibility to be an inspiration for others. You have a role model to be the clarity that sometimes people seek in their moments of dilemma. Just like you got the same from some other people.
Yes, yes.
So from that point of view, when I'm not there, what I'd like some of the people to maybe practice a bit more is truthfulness, and at the same time also compassion. One without the other doesn't make a difference.
Very true. Very true.
And along with that will also come fairness and generosity and I've been a beneficiary of these, and therefore I know what's it about practicing them, and therefore,
No, absolutely. I think because we have seen this firsthand, we experience, and there's two ways of looking at it. Either you have role models who are really good, and you are like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's always telling the truth. He's very compassionate, kind, and you want to be like them. Or possibly because you have struggled with people who are absolutely nothing like this, and then you want to be having all this thing because I don't want to be like them. But either which ways, I think these are great values, and through your business, through your coaching, through what you do, you are bringing this for a lot of younger generation, and you rightly said. Right at what you said about your story, and if I get that name correct, let me just give me a moment. That gentleman who slept at the station, your realization, even if that's one person, you had a lasting impact on his life.
1 second, you just have to give me 1 second.
So, what I wanted to ask is, I have seen firsthand how your work might create impact. Like for me, also, it created impact. I learned this art of storytelling. So I know that, hey, what, as a trainer, if I want to really get better, I need to start collecting stories, putting it somewhere so that and practice it in my conversation, in my training, in my sessions, practice it so that it comes naturally then. There are for sure a lot of things that your kids, your wife, people around you, your friends, your role models also might be learning from you. There may be tons of people who are following you, and I think there's somewhere we are creating a lot of impact. And in fact, if you have thought about it, and it's absolutely great, but do give it a try. Maybe whenever you have just your spare time, just think about just writing it down as to, hey, what, whenever that time comes, this is what I would like to do for the world. Because then for me, it gives you that sense of purpose, meaning, and this is the ultimate goal. Uh, After a certain time, it's not just money, the bungalow, the cars, but how you treat people, how you had an impact on people's life. And if that is the focus, it becomes really easy for us, coaches, trainers, to do the right thing each and every day.
That clarity is already there, thankfully. As you asked it, I remembered. I'll tell you why. So there was this interesting incident that took place in July 96. I was coming back home after, submitting my, I think, paperwork and all that for my LLB admissions. I was kind of coming back home. And about 20 minutes before I reached home, and I remember distinctly, vividly remember, this was around 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon, and we had just crossed the Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi on the outer ring road. And my home was still about 20 minutes away from there. And in the bus, in the red line buses, as we used to call them, a song started playing, which is again one of the other songs out of the 10 that have had a profound influence on me. And one of the words, the stanzas in that, had a deep impact. And this came just a few months after my Vipassana experience.
Hmm.
So the lines of that song, I don't think can express this any better than what I can put it to words. So it's a very famous song from the 1957 Raj Kapoor movie called Anadi, and
Hmm.
a very famous song called Kisi Ki Muskurahaton Pe Ho Nizar, right? And in that, there's a line towards the end which says, कि मर के भी किसी को याद आएंगे, किसी की आंसुओं में तो मुस्कुराएंगे, कहेगा हर फूल कली से बार बार जीना इसी का नाम, right? I think that in itself gave me that clarity back then. And I don't think I can add anything more to it in terms of how I'd like to be remembered or what I'd like to do. I'd just like to kind of move away very quietly without realizing. And then just, I've also been, I should say, Maria, deeply positively been influenced by the Jain tradition of what is called as Guptadan, anonymous.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's like, you know, uh, you know, नेकी कर दरिया में डाल पतली गली से निकल जाए types.
No, no, wait, wait. I think, being brought up as a Christian, there's many times that I've heard this from the Bible, and it says something about very beautifully. It's while you're giving alms, your left hand should not know what your right hand is doing. You need to do it in secret. Not the way a lot of this social media influencer might be doing. They're giving food to someone is recording, they're giving cash to someone's like, just do it because it brings a lot of joy. Uh, Being able to be generous, being compassionate is beautiful.
Yeah.
But this has been amazing. I never thought we'd have such deep conversation. Although we had certain things in mind, but wow, this is amazing. It's more than what I could have expected. And thank you so much, Sree, once again for doing this. I think there's a lot for the viewers also to take from this session, even if that's one person who watches this, and even if there's one statement that sticks with them. I think this entire purpose of doing this podcast thing would be really working out well for us. But amazing, and thank you so much once again. And I will look forward to reaching out to you with a list of all the books, possibly the songs that had influence on you, so that we can talk more about this to anyone who would like to hear about it.
Certainly. My pleasure, Mariadas. And I think I must add this that the reason I agreed to do this was because of what I appreciate about you, and we had a conversation about this some time back uh,
Yes,
when you wrote the word Coachee Mariadas rather than
yes,
Coach Mariadas.
yes.
And that learning humility mindset that you have is what helped me, I would say, to agree to your request to do this. Otherwise, I'm the kind of person who believes, पतली गली से निकल जा चुपचाप घर जाके सो जा.
No, no, it's really helped me. That one person, if you have to say who's me, for sure. With all this conversation, there's a deep impact that it had on me. There's so many things I need to start reading,
Right.
so many things I need to do as a coach, as a trainer, and this is absolutely brilliant. I'll obviously reach out to you, and do consider this. Maybe do podcast or write books, put all the stories together. It would be amazing. I can vouch for that. That I'm going to buy your book. I'm going to watch a podcast for sure.
Thank you, Maridas. Thank you.
This is amazing. Thank you so much once again, Sree, and I'll connect with you sometime soon. For all those people who might be watching this, if you want to learn a little more about Sree, he is available on LinkedIn. I'll drop a link to his profile in the comments, and do check him out and send your request, connect with him, learn, possibly get him for your organization. Together, let's make that difference. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. You too. Thank you. Thank you, Maridas. Thank you.